Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Epitome classes. My name is Joy Mukherjee, and this is lecture 2 of our video lecture series on biology. In our previous lecture, we have already started with this topic life process. We have also discussed what are the various types of life process, where we have discussed a mnemonic so that you can better remember it. So we would proceed in that same series. So this would be the lecture 2, and in this particular lecture, we would be covering the following topics. The first one would be types of autotrophic nutrition, photosynthesis, types of heterotrophic nutrition, and modes of obtaining food. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. Types of autotrophs. So basically, we would see over here that there are two types of autotrophs. They are categorized as chemosynthetic autotrophs and photosynthetic autotrophs. Chemosynthetic, as the name suggests, they are capable of synthesizing their energy from oxidation of inorganic substances like elemental sulfur, nitrates, nitrites, etc. The energy released during this oxidation process is then utilized for synthesis of ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell, which is responsible for carrying out various metabolic activities that is happening within a cell. So in case of chemosynthetic autotrophs, they are not dependent on light for synthesizing their energy, but rather they are dependent on very basic elemental chemicals, and through those chemicals they break down those chemicals and they are capable of releasing ATP, which is energy currency of the cell. So now the question arises that when there is a mechanism already in place wherein autotrophs can capture the light energy and use it for synthesizing food, why do we need these chemosynthetic autotrophs? Why there is this existence of these organisms which are chemosynthetic autotrophs? So the answer is, there are certain places on earth uh, where light cannot reach. These are the extreme corners of the world. Now, let me tell you this, that more than 80% of the living world that is present on our earth is the ocean life, the marine life. It is the only realm that has not yet been fully exploited by human beings. There are still thousands of organisms which are lurking in the depths of ocean, which has not yet been encountered by the humans. So therefore, there is a wide scope of organisms which are present beneath the ocean water. Now what happens is, as we dive deep into ocean, after a certain limit, the light cannot reach any further. So light ceases to exist. There is complete darkness underneath, and due to this darkness, now there is darkness, yet there are organisms which are surviving. So how do these organisms survive? They are present on the seabed near the vents. We know that inside our earth crust there is a pool of magma, boiling magma. This boiling magma keeps on emitting various gases through the cracks and holes present on the ocean floor. Now near to these cracks and vents, there are special type of microbial organisms which are chemosynthetic autotrophs. They are capable of using chemicals for synthesizing their energy. So what happens is, these organisms, they are present near the vent, and through these vent, when there is a stream of this various chemicals which are oozing out from the surface, from the ocean floor, they use these chemicals, and usually they are sulfides. There is a sulfur constant emission of gases like sulfur, nitrogen. These are the gases which are being emitted from the boiling lava which is present underneath. Now these gases, they emit in form of jet streams. There is a stream of gas that is coming out through a hole or a vent that is present on the ocean floor. Near to this vent, you will find these special type of bacteria which have adapted themselves so that they can use that sulfur which is coming out. They can use that nitrogen which is coming out, And by performing chemosynthetic operations on those elemental form of chemicals like sulfur and nitrogen, they are capable of producing their energy in form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that is the energy currency of the cell. Over here, definition is important. Often question has been asked, so you should know the definition. As I told you, there is no need to mug up. You can just understand the definition and you would better remember it. Now, chemosynthetic autotrophs are organisms which can synthesize their energy from oxidation of inorganic substances. This is the line that you need to remember. What is happening over here? There is a process taking place, that is oxidation. Oxidation of what? Of inorganic substances like elemental sulfur, nitrates, nitrites, etc. And after breaking down these elemental chemicals or elemental components, what is happening? Energy is being released. Energy released during this oxidation process is utilized for synthesis of ATP molecule, which is the energy currency. Over here you can see there is a reaction, that is 12H2S hydrogen sulfide plus 6 CO2. It produces C6H12O6, which is obviously glucose, and then there is 6 molecules of H2O that is produced and 12 molecules of sulfur. So this is a example of a chemosynthetic reaction that takes place in chemosynthetic autotrophs, and this is a magnified image of a bacteria which is a microbe that is obviously chemoautotroph, and this is nitrosomonas. So it is capable of using nitrogen for producing its energy, that is ATP, and through these ATP that is being released, various metabolic activities that is happening within a cell takes place. Okay, now we would come to photoautotrophs, the second part. Photoautotrophs are very prominent. These are organisms which we have often seen around us. All the green plants that you can witness around you, they would be categorized as photoautotrophs. And we know that they perform this process of photosynthesis. We have read it in our junior class as well. It is a process in which they are capable of manufacturing their own food in the presence of sunlight. Okay, so we will delve more deep into this definition of photosynthesis, and we would try to understand the various ingredients which are required for manufacturing this food that is prepared by autotrophs. So over here, as you can see, sunlight is most important. That is the only source of energy in our solar system, and this light energy is being captured by plants. No other organism on this planet has this capability, obviously except for chemoautotrophs, that they can capture this energy and utilize it for making its own food. So plants are the only organisms present on this planet Earth which has capability of doing this. Along with sunlight, there are few other ingredients which is also required. Over here you can see carbon dioxide, which is obviously absorbed from the atmosphere. Now, absorbing this carbon dioxide from the atmosphere also proves to be a boon to the mankind, as this carbon dioxide is required by green plants for performing this process of photosynthesis. What they do is they absorb the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere, in turn lowering the carbon content of the atmosphere and preventing global warming. So that's the reason plants are so much important for our environment. So carbon dioxide, which is absorbed from the atmosphere, of course, and then water. Water is absorbed by the roots which are present below the soil. Along with all these ingredients, when they are mixed together, the product that is formed is oxygen and obviously glucose, or you can say sugar molecule, which is in form of glucose. So oxygen is being released. So not only plants are helping in lowering the carbon content of the atmosphere and prevention of global warming, it is also adding oxygen to the environment, which is enabling other organisms to survive. So therefore they are truly regarded as lungs of the earth. Green plants, forests, evergreen forests, they are regarded as the lungs of the earth. The reason they are regarded as the lungs of the earth, because they are performing the activity which is performed by our lungs. Purpose of our lungs is to capture oxygen and provide it to various cells present in the body, and release of carbon dioxide from the body. So similar thing is done by the plants also. They are removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they are pumping oxygen in the atmosphere. Therefore they are rightly regarded as lungs of the earth. So now let's see the detailed process that is actually happening behind this process of photosynthesis. Over here there is a magnified image of a cell organelle, which is of course chloroplast. It is a distinct cell organelle which is present only in plant cell. You will not find a chloroplast in animal cell. Now this plant cell, as you can see over here, there is a proper lining that is present. It is the cell wall. It is the distinct feature of a plant cell. You can identify a plant cell through this, because a plant cell would always possess a cell wall around it. Now inside this cell there is this special organelle which is known as chloroplast. If you magnify this image of chloroplast, you can very well see that it is a double membraned organelle. There are two membranes, a outer membrane and a inner membrane. Now between this there is intermembrane space, as you can see in the diagram, and inside these two membranes actually bound a jelly like matrix which is known as a stroma. The entire jelly like matrix that fills the chloroplast is stroma, and in this stroma there are these special structures which are floating. You can see there are these coin shaped structure which are piled one on top of the other. The single disc is known as thylakoid, and when you pile up all these discs together, they are known as grana. So basically grana is a stack of thylakoids. It's a pile of thylakoids, one thylakoid over the other placed in this forms grana. So single disc like structure, we will call it thylakoid. This entire block we will call it grana. I hope this much is clear. Now let's proceed. What is the purpose of these thylakoids and grana? These thylakoids and grana, these are special organs present within these organelles. They are sensitive to light. As soon as light falls on these thylakoids or grana, there is a special chemical that gets activated. Due to this activation of this chemical, what happens is the light energy which falls on these thylakoids in form of photons. You might have read in physics that light is in form of energy bundles called photons. So these photons, when they fall, they excite the pigment that is present, and this light energy is converted into chemical energy. Along with this conversion, there is one more very important process that is happening over here, that is splitting of water molecule into oxygen. Water molecule is broken down in order to produce oxygen. This splitting is taking place because of light energy that is falling on thylakoid. Therefore it is known as photolysis. Photo means light, lysis means breaking down. Photolysis of water is taking place over here. Again, a very important question is being formed from this portion, that is the oxygen that is released as a byproduct of photosynthesis. From where is this oxygen coming? So this oxygen is coming from photolysis of water. Water molecule is being broken down to separate hydrogen and oxygen, and then oxygen atoms are combining together to form an oxygen molecule, which is being released as a byproduct in this process. Now, along with this photolysis of water, that is the splitting of water molecule, there is one more very important phenomena that is happening, that is there are two high energy molecules which are produced, that is ATP and NADPH. as you can see over here. ATP and NADPH. ATP we already know that it is adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of the cell. Along with it, there is one more high energy molecule that is produced is NADPH. Now this ATP and NADPH is transferred to the stroma. I hope you remember, stroma is this jelly-like matrix that is filled all inside this organelle, that is chloroplast. This entire chloroplast is filled with this jelly-like matrix, that is stroma. Now ATP and NADPH is transferred to stroma, and in this stroma there are special enzymes and special chemicals present which initiates a process that is known as Kelvin cycle. Now over here you can see that there are two reactions which are occurring simultaneously or parallel to each other, you can say. The two distinct reactions which are occurring within this organelle itself is one with the help of light, that is, as soon as the light is falling on the thylakoid, it is getting there are chemicals which are present which is getting excited. Now these excited chemicals are capturing this light energy and they are using it in photolysis of water, that is, water molecule is broken down and oxygen is produced. Along with photolysis of water, it is also producing two high energy molecules, that is ATP and NADPH. ATP and NADPH is released in the stroma. Stroma has his special chemicals present over there, and with the help of these special chemicals, Kelvin cycle, a chain, a series of reactions, you can say, gets started, that is known as Kelvin cycle. Kelvin cycle is independent of light. It does not require light to initiate, therefore it is known as dark reaction. And the photolysis part, the part in which light is required, it is known as light reaction. Please don't get confused on hearing this term dark reaction. Dark reaction does not mean that it takes place in dark. It can take place in light also, it can take place in dark also. The only reason it is called dark reaction is it is independent of light. Light is not required for initiating this particular reaction, and this is the only reason that it is known as dark reaction. Dark reaction should not be confused that it is happening only in the dark. Nothing so. So I hope you have got a rough idea of what is happening over here. In Kelvin cycle, of course, carbon dioxide is trapped. It is also known as carbon fixation. As we have seen, in the process of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is required. So specifically carbon dioxide is required for in this process of Kelvin cycle that is initiating in the stroma of a chloroplast. Now as this Kelvin cycle proceeds, there are few products which are again released. These are NADP and ADP. So therefore along with NADP and ADP, which are again high energy molecules, which again helps in the excitation of, as you can see, there is an arrow which is marked NADP and ADP. It helps in excitation of thylakoids. And again, this light reaction, with the help of light, photolysis of water is taking place, oxygen is being released along with ATP and NADPH. So this is a continuous cycle that is happening. Now in this Kelvin cycle, there is one more product that is released. As we have seen in the light reaction, oxygen is released. In Kelvin cycle, the product that is released is sugar. That is, of course, glucose. Now again, this is the whole purpose of this photosynthesis. This sugar molecule that is used as food for the plant. It gets stored as food for plants in form of glycogen. In form of starch. In form of glycogen, it is in case of animals. In case of plants, it is in form of starch. It gets stored on leaves and stem of plants. Now, steps involved in the process of photosynthesis. The first step that is involved in the process of photosynthesis is absorption of light energy. So, absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. First process is with the help of this light energy, chlorophyll, which is a pigment present in the chloroplast. The diagram in detail we have already discussed. It gets excited, it converts this light energy into chemical energy. With the help of light energy only, water molecule is being splitted into hydrogen and oxygen, which in turn helps in release of oxygen. So this is known as photolysis. As I have already discussed, photolysis is breaking down of a particular molecule with the help of light. Photo means light, lysis means breaking down. Now second is conversion of light energy into chemical energy by splitting of water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen, and then at the last, reduction of carbon dioxide molecules, carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. Now reduction, I hope you have already read oxidation and reduction in your junior classes. Anyways, reduction means addition of hydrogen or removal of oxygen. If in a molecule, if in any molecule hydrogen is being added or oxygen is being removed, we will term this kind of reaction as reduction reaction. So this reduction reaction takes place with this carbon dioxide molecule, and it gets converted into carbohydrates, that is C6H12O6 in form of glucose. Now over here we have this is very important equation of photosynthesis. Whenever you would be asked about photosynthesis, you would have to write this equation as well along with the definition. So this is pretty common, you might have seen it many times before also. So 6CO2 plus 12H2O in presence of chlorophyll and sunlight will produce C6H12O6, which is glucose of course, and oxygen and water. Okay, now difference between light and dark reaction. We have seen that there are two reactions which are taking place parallel to each other inside the chloroplast. So light reaction and dark reaction. We will quickly see what is the difference. This is also important, guys, so please pay attention. One by one we would see definition. Light reaction, these reaction takes place in presence of light, as we have already discussed. Dark reaction, they are independent of light. It is not that they are taking place in dark, but it is just that it is independent of light. It can take place in light also, it can take place in dark also, but it is not requiring light for initiating this process of dark reaction. So therefore they are independent of light. Pigments are required. Obviously chlorophyll is the main pigment which gets excited when it comes in contact with light, and it traps the light energy so that it can be converted into chemical energy, wherein in case of dark reaction no pigment is required. Site of action, this also we have seen. In case of light reaction, it was taking place in the pile of thylakoids, which was termed as grana lamellae of chloroplast, and this dark reaction was taking place in the stroma, which we have discussed. It is a jelly-like matrix which is filled in inside a chloroplast. The entire inside portion of a chloroplast is filled with this jelly-like matrix that is termed as stroma. Now products we have seen. In case of light reaction, ATP was produced, NADPH was produced, and oxygen was produced. These were the three main products. ATP and NADPH were the high energy molecules which were transferred to stroma so that the dark reaction can be initiated, and oxygen was released as a byproduct. In dark reaction, what is produced? The product is carbohydrate, as I have already discussed, in form of glucose, which was used as food by the plants. The entire purpose of this photosynthesis was production of this carbohydrate so that it can be used by the plants. So you can see, ultimately if you look at the complete chain, light energy is finally getting converted into carbohydrates. After going through multiple chain of reactions, of course, it is getting converted to carbohydrates which can be used by the green plants. Now oxygen released as byproduct of photosynthesis, and oxygen is not released. This would be the fifth point of difference, and the last point of difference would be enzymes. No enzyme is required in case of light reaction because initiation of this reaction is taking place with the help of light which is falling on the leaves of green plant, wherein dark reaction initiation was taking place with the help of enzymes which are required in Kelvin cycle. Okay, limiting factors affecting photosynthesis. What are the limiting factors? What are limiting factors? First of all, limiting factors are those factors, if you increase or decrease these factors, it would impact the rate of this particular photosynthesis. Therefore, they are known as limiting factors. So, any factors on increasing or decreasing of which it can affect the rate of photosynthesis would be limiting factors for photosynthesis. So, obviously, the first and foremost would be light. Light is a limiting factor. Greater the duration and intensity, greater the rate of photosynthesis. More the green plants, more the green leaves would be exposed to light, there would be more initiation of light reaction, which in turn will initiate dark reaction, and ultimately it will lead to production of glucose or carbohydrate, that is the byproduct which is used by the plants as food. So amount of light will reach maximum, then level off. So this rate, it would go in a certain pattern. That is, first of all, if you will increase the exposure of light, the rate of photosynthesis will go up, and after going up significantly, it will level off. It is not that it will keep on going higher and higher. After it will reach to a certain limit, and after reaching that particular limit, it will level off. Okay, the second thing is temperature. Extreme high or low temperature destroy the enzyme needed for photosynthesis. So enzymes which are required for photosynthesis, they get destroyed on being exposed to extreme high temperatures or extreme low temperatures. Therefore, you would see that at places where there is extreme high temperature or extreme low temperature, green plants cease to exist, because this process of photosynthesis cannot take place. So in these places, what kind of organisms will you find? Yes, chemoautotrophs. They would be using chemicals for doing this particular process of producing their food. But green plant cannot exist because they are not able to withstand such high temperatures or such low temperatures. Therefore, the enzymes which are present in them, which is required for this process, gets destroyed. Therefore, ultimately ceasing this process of photosynthesis. Now, third limiting factor would be water. Of course, we have seen that water is one of the ingredients required in this process of photosynthesis, absorbed by the roots. So photosynthesis requires water. Less water will decrease photosynthesis. So if there would be scarcity of water, the rate of photosynthesis will significantly decrease. And not only significantly decrease, that after a time, if you would see that there is extreme scarcity of water, finally the plant would die, because the process of photosynthesis would cease. Now, the fourth limiting factor is carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is not a limiting factor for terrestrial plants. Let me tell you this. Plants which are found on land, terrestrial plants, they have ample of carbon dioxide, because we have significant amount of carbon dioxide present in our atmosphere itself. So there is never shortage of carbon dioxide, and nevertheless we the humans, we have emitted so much of carbon dioxide, we have polluted so much of our environment, that there is never ever deficiency of carbon dioxide for terrestrial plants. But this is not the case in case of aquatic plants, because in case of aquatic plants, they can only use the limited amount of carbon dioxide that is dissolved in water. Therefore, carbon dioxide is also one of the limiting factors affecting photosynthesis. Please remember, there are 4 limiting factors. They are nothing but the things that is utilized or released in the carbon in this process of photosynthesis itself. As you can see, light, temperature, water, and carbon dioxide. Other limiting factors are soil minerals, magnesium found in chlorophyll molecule. These are also limiting factors. You should know that the center atom of a chlorophyll molecule is magnesium. The structure of atom is very similar to that of a hemoglobin, the red color pigment found in blood. The only difference in case of hemoglobin, we have Fe or iron as the central atom. In case of this chlorophyll, we have magnesium as the central atom, and more or less their structure is same. So that is the thing. The only difference is of the central atom. Central atom in this case is magnesium. Okay, let's proceed. Difference between photosynthesis and chemosynthesis, very important, often asked. So it is quite simple also, you would remember. Photosynthesis, light is the first thing. In case of photosynthesis, it is required. In case of chemosynthesis, it is not required. Energy, Solar energy is required because we know that the process of photosynthesis is initiated with the help of light that is converted into chemical energy. So solar energy is required. In case of chemosynthesis, chemical energy is required because they are dependent on chemicals, elemental chemicals, and after performing various chemical process on these elemental chemicals, they are finally getting converted into food, that is carbohydrate. Now, occurrence takes place in green plant, takes place in iron and sulfur bacteria. One of the examples of such kind of bacteria I have shown you, and they are usually found, as I told you, they are marine. That is, they are found near the seabed where light is very minimum or it is completely dark, and they are also present near the vents that is present on the seabed. These vents are responsible for oozing out these elemental chemicals like sulfur. There is a and nitrogen which is constantly being emitted from the layer of magma that is present underneath. Okay, so now types of we have completed the types of autotrophic nutrition. Now we have types of heterotrophic nutrition. A slight of this we have already discussed in our previous lecture. However, we would see this in more detail. Three major classifications are saprophytic nutrition, parasitic nutrition, and Hollowzoic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition, what do we mean by saprophytic nutrition? Depends on non-living substances, that is dead and decaying organic material are absorbed through the body wall by the organism like bacteria and fungi. Now you need to remember this. In case of saprophytes, they are dependent on dead and decaying dead and decaying matter. They are responsible for cleaning our environment. Without saprophytes, we would have been sitting on heap of garbage. So it is the saprophytes which is responsible for cleaning of our environment. Therefore, they are extremely important to us. Okay, now how does this nutrition takes place? Actually, what happens is these organisms secretes a certain type of enzyme. Now this enzyme digests or turns the food into liquid state outside the body. Over here, digestion of food is not taking place inside the body. Digestive system is not that well developed that there would be organelles for performing this process, but rather digestion is taking place outside the body, and once the food has been digested outside the body, it is converted into a semi-solid or a liquid lump. Now this liquid is sucked through the body wall of these saprophytes. Okay, so this is how saprophytic nutrition occurs. Example is bacteria and fungi. Now parasitic nutrition depends on another living organism. This living organism is called as host, has close association with host and obtain food from it. I have already discussed in our previous lecture. Parasites are the organism which are dependent on other organism which are called host, obviously, but they derive nutrition from the host. In turn, they do not kill the host. Okay, they do not kill the host, they only derive nutrition from them. Host is not benefited, but at times it is harmed. Okay, in case of parasites, there is no benefit that is obtained by the host, it is only harmed. Example is bacteria, fungi, plants like escuta, and animal like tapeworm. Okay, so now let's move on. Next is Hollowzoic. Hollowzoic we know, where digestion is taking place inside the body. Digestive system is well developed, you can say. Parts of plants or animals or whole organism is taken as food, digested with the help of digestive enzymes into simple substances, then absorbed by the body cells. Now, Holozoic nutrition, obviously we know that it is taking place in animals, but there are certain plants also which are carnivorous in nature, like pitcher plant or Venus flytrap. What they do is they digest their prey inside a well developed chamber, so that can also be categorized as Holozoic nutrition. Now we will see what they are. First is parasitic plants. There are plants which are parasites, there are plants which are saprophytes, there are insectivorous plants, and then there are symbiotic plants. One by one we will see what each type is. First is parasitic plants. It feeds on other plants called the host and derive their nutrition. Amarbale and Cascuta are the best examples. Amarbale and Cascuta, if you have seen, these are the small plants which grow on other plants. Therefore, they derive a part of their nutrition from the parent plant. That is, the minerals and the water is taken from the parent plant on which they grow, and therefore they are known as parasitic plants. Examples are important. Please try to remember Amarbale or Cascuta. Next comes saprophytic plants. It feeds on dead and decayed matter for its nutrition. Example is fungus, very common. You might have seen on a loaf of bread. If you keep it out for a while, there would be grayish or white or blackish color structures which are growing on that bread loaf. They are fungus. That is fungus. I hope everyone might have seen fungus in their life. So they are saprophytes because they grow on dead and decaying matter. Next is insectivores plant. These feeds on small insects and animals which sit on them and obtain nutrition, like pitcher plant, Venus flytrap, we have already discussed. Then comes symbiotic plant. First of all, the term symbiotic means mutual relationship. That is, both the organisms are mutually benefited from one another. Such type of relationship is known as symbiotic relationship. And what are symbiotic plants? It provides shelter and in turn obtain food from organisms living in its shelter without harming it. So this is the beauty of symbiotic relationship. In parasites also there are two organisms involved. One is host and other is the organism which is feeding on the host. But in this, host is not benefited but rather harmed. So therefore it would be termed as parasitic form of nutrition. In case of symbiotic form of nutrition, both the organisms are mutually benefited from one another. So it's a mutual healthy relationship between two organisms. Symbiotic plants example is very common. We know that leguminous plants, they have rhizobium bacteria in the root nodules. So in the root nodules of leguminous plant there lives a bacteria which is known as rhizobium, and they share a symbiotic relationship with this plant. What is this symbiotic relationship? Plant is providing shelter and food to that bacteria, and in turn this bacteria is providing plant with nitrogen, because plant is not capable of obtaining nitrogen directly from the atmosphere. Therefore what they do is, these bacteria converts the atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites which can be used or absorbed by the plant. So they are providing this plant with absorbable nitrogen which plant cannot fix by their own, and in turn plant is providing shelter and food to these bacteria which are living in the root nodules. Another famous example is lichen. It's association of fungi and algae. This is very important. Often they ask what are lichens. It's a symbiotic relationship between two organisms, that is fungi and algae. Please remember this. Okay, saprophytic nutrition. Some organisms break down food material outside the body, as I have already discussed with you, and then absorb it. Example is fungi like bread molds, yeast and mushrooms. These all are organisms that show saprophytic nutrition. Then in these organism releases enzyme outside the body. These enzymes break down the complex substances which are present in the dead organic matter into simple substances. I told you the solid matter is converted into semi-solid or liquid state, which is in turn sucked by the body wall of these saprophytic organisms. Hollowzoic nutrition, where digestion is taking place inside the body. In case of saprophytes, we have seen first they digest the food outside the body, then they take it in. In case of Hollowzoic, there is a well developed digestive system, so there is no need of digesting food outside the body, but rather food is digested inside the body itself. Now three types of Hollowzoic nutrition: herbivores, carnivores, omnivores. Very common since childhood, we have been reading this. Herbivores, organisms which feed on green plants only. Carnivores, they feed on other organisms which are dependent on green plants or otherwise. And then comes omnivores, organisms that feed on both plant and other animals. Thank you so much. So this was part 2 of our biology series. Very soon we would be coming up with part 3, in which we would be discussing digestive system in human beings in detail. So stay tuned, and if you have liked the lecture, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye bye.